Hello, Ray Phoenix here. Welcome to Let's Play Batman Returns Part 3, going into the Penguin's Trap, which appears to be in some sort of underground sewer type area. Because what if villains don't live in the sewer? All the greatest villains always live in the sewer. I'm surprised they didn't make more of this game set in the sewer, or a whole Batman game where Batman just lives in the sewer and fights off all the villains down there. So all the greatest villains always live in the sewer. I really like how they did the lighting in this level. They made it like so dark, but yet not so dark you can't see anything. You still see everything clearly. There's like moonlight coming through. Maybe they're not in the sewer. They're probably in some sort of building. Maybe you can see moonlight coming through the windows, or maybe it's street light. There's more of these clowns. We pretty much every level of this game has this fight against these clowns, these obese clowns that always eat too many Big Macs. They're really fat. You know, these fat clowns. There's Fin clowns. Different variants of the Fin clowns. I wonder if they have any clowns at Six Flags. I've never seen Batman in the commercial for Six Flags, so they have like the mascots there. They have like the Looney Tunes characters there. I think even have Batman. There's like, what is Batman doing at Six Flags? Shouldn't he be in Gotham City fighting the Penguin right now, or some other villain that's terrorizing Gotham City, not be at Six Flags partying around? He's also going out and exposing himself in broad daylight, which is something Batman is never supposed to do. Batman never shows himself in broad daylight. There was a book I was reading called the Death and Life of Superman, where Superman dies and comes back from the dead, like in Superman Doomsday. It's pretty much a novelization of those Death and Return of Superman comics. And Batman showed up at Superman's funeral in Metropolis, and he stayed in character when he was showing up at the funeral. He only hid in the shadows, and there was a terrorist that was going to thwart the funeral, and then Batman managed to stop him because Batman was hiding in the shadows, and he did what he was supposed to do. Even when he goes to a funeral, he still stays in character. He didn't just show up and take a regular seat like what all the other DC heroes did. No, he actually showed up there, he showed up there, yeah, but he stayed in the shadows. Batman always is mysterious and stays in the shadows. And fights these villains. Like there's this fire clown, and there's that other clown thing that's juggling. But no, look what we're gonna do again. This is very cliche. It's another boss fight. Yeah, they couldn't think of a better idea for a boss fight. So let's just reuse the boss fight from the last level. It's pretty much the same thing. It's actually easier this time around if you have a much larger playing field. I always like to exhaust my test tubes first. Catwoman. Catwoman has purple health. I always learned the deal was like those colors, like those health colors. I think it started in Final Fight, I think. I remember Captain Commando had that too. Where enemies have different colors representing their health, and eventually gets down to green, and eventually gets to a point where you can actually see their health, and you can see how little health they still have. Like I said, it's not as hard this time around because you have a much larger playing field, and it's really this is really insane. Even on normal difficulties, it's pretty insane. It's like one hit and you're dead. It's like performing microsurgery at an intense speed. You have to know exactly where Catwoman's gonna strike, and you have to know where she's not gonna strike so you can move quickly. Batman doesn't move very fast in the game. It's actually pretty slow in this game. Same as he was in the 1989 Batman video game. What's with Batman and being slow in a lot of these Batman games? I think Batman would be really fast, and he runs and hides in the shadows. But no, he's actually quite slow in this game. They made Batman a slow. They thought they made him really fast, and that might be, was the SNES capable of handling fast speeds? It probably was. Some people say Sonic the Hedgehog may not have been possible in the SNES. Some people have proven that the SNES could indeed handle some fast speeds. And there's another boss. This level is very short, but it's pretty challenging. It's just one boss after another. We're going to fight against the Penguin with only one life left and just a tiny little sliver of health. Of course we're going to get killed. I've never beaten this without getting any hit, without taking a few hits at least. The good thing is you get free continues. They're not unlimited continues, because what Super NES game is going to give you unlimited continues, right? Almost no SNES game ever does that. Heck, a lot of NES games don't really do that either. Batman for the NES is a rare exception with that. We still get scored based on every time we hit enemies. It always shows our score on the screen. The score actually does serve a pretty valuable purpose in this game. Every time we get, I think, 50,000 points, or 10,000, I forget what it was, but I think it's every 50,000 points or so, we get a new life. We're gonna need a lot of lives if you want to beat this game. Play this game. There's a penguin throwing his umbrella at us. You have to jump and throw batarangs of the penguins too. It's done in the 2D perspective as well too. I don't remember this from the movie. Oh, I kind of do remember the part of the Ice Princess and she fell to her death, and somehow they made it look like Batman did. So I guess it does have a lot of relevance to the movie. I think the Penguin showed up there and Catwoman showed up there too, and that's when when Bruce Wayne started to form a relationship with Selina Kyle. She was supposed to be his love interest for this movie, because his love interest in the first movie is absent for an unknown reason. And like the Penguin, this boss isn't overly hard. I mean, if you're gonna get hit a lot, if you know how to dodge his attack, it's actually not that challenging of a boss. Now we're gonna see the next cutscene where I think everyone that's seen this movie knows it's gonna happen next. The Penguin's gonna retreat. The Penguin doesn't really look that short in this game. I mean, he's played by Danny DeVito. He's pretty short in the movie, but in this game he doesn't appear to be all that short. And yes, the Ice Princess just falls and plummets to her death. The citizens are shocked as they see Batman push the Ice Princess off the building. However, not everything is as it seems. No crap, it's not everything as it seems. Batman knows what he's done. He has to, correct what went wrong. So he's going to the Batmobile, where he's going to drive around. We don't get it. It doesn't make us play that sequence where the Batmobile becomes possessed by the devil. I mean, the Penguin takes over the Batmobile, makes it do stuff to make it look like make it look like Batman's doing a bunch of bad driving. He almost runs over an old lady. Then Batman figures out how to regain control, and later he ends up manipulating the Penguin's speech. Where he uses a CD. This is back when CDs are very high tech. He scratches the CD as if it's a vinyl record, makes a screeching noise like ching ching. There's no way that would work. The CD, it's digital. Scratching a CD like that while it's playing is not even gonna make a sound. It works with a vinyl record, but it works with a CD. I always say that every time I watch that movie. This level is really impressive too. It goes in like a mode 7. Almost looks like F-Zero almost, but it's Batman, the Batmobile in an F-Zero type venue, where it looks like 3D graphics, almost like isometric perspective graphics. It almost looks like 3D, almost looks like a racing game. It almost looks like, because you're shooting stuff too, like destroying other cars, in this case those biker clowns. It's almost like Twisted Metal, almost like this was the precursor to Twisted Metal. People said Twisted Metal couldn't have been done in earlier generations of video gaming systems because of how primitive they were and how they weren't really powerful and do what Twisted Metal is. But this is pretty dang powerful. I would say this is almost as good as like what Twisted Metal is. Imagine what Twisted Metal and the SNES would have been like. It probably would have been something like this, what we're seeing right now. I can imagine what Wipeout games would have looked like on the SNES too. They probably would have looked something like this too. That reminds me of a lot the other day when I was reading a story about this guy who spent so much time searching for a Wipeout game that didn't exist, and it was Wipeout XL. I know what Wipeout XL is. That's what Wipeout 2097 is called in North America. I know that because I'm from North America, and that's what it says on my copy of Wipeout XL. I spend so much time searching for something that didn't exist. That was a story I came up with in the lost media community lately. It was about times people spent so much time searching for lost media that doesn't exist. I think my greatest story of that when I was reading the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends wiki, and I mentioned that Wallace from Wallace and Gromit had a cameo in an episode of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends Ticket to Rod, and I inspected every single frame of that episode to see when Wallace showed up, and it never happened. He's just not in that episode. And thanks to that, I've seen that episode more times than I've seen any other episode of that show. Yeah, I really had to stop listening to fandom wikis. Since when were fandom wikis ever correct or accurate? I don't really think those are a valid, viable way to back up information or back up claims. I mean, the Lost Media Wiki says that. They don't want you using the Lost Media Wiki, the fandom wikis to back up stuff. And then I was reminded of, and then it also reminded me of some other Lost Media I might know. Like that time I watched when I was in kindergarten, they made us watch a disturbing documentary about some birth defect that was supposed to traumatize kindergarten kids and give them nightmares. And then at the same time, that's when I was first introduced to Wallace and Gromit. I saw a close shave for the first time ever. I thought it was an impressive, incredible thing. And we also watched some VeggieTales ripoff called The Nuttiest Nutcracker. It's like some poor man's version of VeggieTales, only it wasn't religious in it, but it was based on Christmas. It was like a Christmas special, I think, that may have aired on TV or something like that. You actually get through this level a lot faster if you press the up arrow and you can drive the Batmobile, make the Batmobile's rocket booster go faster. I never really realized how traumatizing kindergarten is. I always talk about middle school for being traumatizing. I played this game a lot in middle school, and I thought those were some of those traumatizing years of my life, but actually, it was probably being in kindergarten could arguably be more traumatizing or just as traumatizing. I never would have thought how traumatizing kindergarten was, especially because I had a kindergarten teacher who was a creep, and I'm not going to get too much into detail on that. So we're pretty much playing Twisted Metal again. We're going after the campaign truck. It looks a bit like Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal from the back. If you told me I was an ice cream truck, I believe you, but we're tackling this. And imagine if Batman was in Twisted Metal. That kind of did happen in that game Road Trip Vacation 2012. There's a car that looks like the Batmobile and it's driven by a guy. I think his name's Ratman or something like that. It's all whimsical, like, no, Ratman. They're throwing dynamite at us and trying to dodge us. This looks like something that could have been an arcade game. I don't know much about the Sega CD version of Batman Returns, but all I saw in the commercial for it was just this, pretty much. We were driving the Batmobile and we're trying to drive down the street and swerve around and dodge enemies and dodge obstacles and dodge crap that gets thrown at us. And at least that's all I saw of the Sega CD version. I know the whole game is like that. It's almost like they took this one level and made a whole game based on. I mean, this game really does have, that's the only time the game ever deviates from what it normally is. But I think they really did a good job at that overall. It makes the game, much more. It really does add a lot to the memorable experience that this game delivers to us. And the Penguin's just been exposed. Everyone knows the truth about him. He can't get elected mayor anymore. So he's going to kidnap a bunch of children and hold them ransom or hold them hostage or something like that. In Gotham City, now Batman has to come and rescue them. Batman's always the best at doing it. Batman's the best at anything. He's one of the most versatile superheroes I know of. He's kind of like a soldier out there that fights sci-fi villains. While at the same time, he kind of just lives in his own city and just fights off local villains. Kind of like Spider-Man. I mean, Spider-Man's not too different from that either. Spider-Man doesn't really save his world that much. Most of the time, he just saves his city or just saves his loved ones and friends from local villains or criminals that just hang out in his city. Batman's not really much different from that. I mean, Spider-Man, I'm pretty sure Batman was probably a lot of the inspiration for Spider-Man. I mean, Stan Lee read a lot of Batman comics when he was younger. I'm pretty sure that gave him the inspiration for Spider-Man. And Spider-Man is the DC hero. It's most like Batman. The more I think of it now, DC heroes really are quite different from Marvel heroes a lot of the time. I'm not going to get too into detail with this, but they actually do have their significant differences, which is why it's perfectly justified to say one of them is better than the other. And there was that weird Indian comic book I came across once where they actually broke the barriers, the universe barriers, and had Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man team up with each other to fight some kind of villain. Yeah, Indian comics are some of the weirdest comics you'll ever come across. They use slurs a lot of the time like it's nothing. And they have so much freaky stuff. There's even this one James Bond comic, I'm pretty sure it was unlicensed, or involved in going to this thing, and kind of like those Filipino movies, like that James Batman, that unlicensed Batman and James Bond crossover movie from the Philippines, where you know how much people in the Philippines really respect copyright. I mean, Batman Fights Dracula is the most wanted piece of lost here, since it's not likely it'll ever get found, I'm gonna recreate it myself using Captain Fusion. I mean, Captain Fusion kind of is like a mixture of the Kevin Conroy Batman from Batman the Animated Series and Ben Kenobi. He's kind of like my version of Batman, so I guess he'd be the one I would use if I was to make my own Batman movie but didn't have the Batman license, so I just had to use my own versions of the Batman characters. Not a Batman. Of course, it's going to be like a whimsical movie, of course, because the real movie it's based on is supposed to be like some comedy movie, like Filipino comedy movies, which I don't really know much. I mean, the only Filipino movie I've really watched was James Batman. And it had nothing compared to the kind of stuff I'm doing in this level right now, where I have to jump over that thing. There's no warning at all when it's coming. You just have to guess when it's going to come and kind of jump. It can work to your advantage a lot of the time. It can be used to kill off a lot of the enemies. And the best part is you get scored for all the enemies it kills off. It's playing comical music too. I think maybe it just does use like the Batman theme as well in it too. So I guess it's kind of like, again, this might be actual music from the movie. Again, it's really impressive they were able to put movie music into this game and actually have it work and actually sounds like just like the real music from the movie, which is something that's supposed to be impossible, yet somehow this game managed to pull it off. Wipeout 64 did a similar thing too, when they put like real licensed music soundtracks in the game. I mean, the PS1 Wipeout games did that, but that's not really saying much because PS1 games are in CDs, so it's really easy for PS1 games to have real CD quality music. But Wipeout 64 is an N64 game and it somehow manages to have CD quality music. Just like this game, a lot of cartridge games actually have we'll often bash them a lot for having sound quality. It's not as good as CD quality, but a lot of cartridge games actually could have some pretty good quality music. Even the Sega Genesis had some really good quality music, kind of like in the Sonic games, and even stuff like the Aladdin game on the Genesis had some really good quality. Remember my mom was commenting on that a long time. Like, oh look, this game has this music that sounds like it's actually played by a real orchestra, and it's on the Sega Genesis. And then I went to play Frogger on the Genesis, and then she's like, oh yeah, this sounds like downright video game music. I think Frogger may have been the last game on the Genesis, or one of the last known games on the Genesis, and I happen to have a copy of that game. And I remember it being one of the first YouTube videos I made, where it gave me a lot of hits. For a lot of hits back then. I don't know how many hits it has now, I haven't checked it in a long time. I consider my Tetrasphere video I made like 7 years ago to be like a iconic hit of mine now, because it was filmed in my grandma's basement. My grandma doesn't have that basement anymore. She doesn't have that Quasar wood grain TV from 1990 anymore, so pretty much all those videos I made back in early 2018 are now considered to be quite valuable, like historical archives. Now we're fighting against another boss. I totally remember this, the one from the comics, the Organ Grinder, the O Grinder is what you think. It's Organ Grinder. What's he a grinder of? Anyways, what is he supposed to be a grinder of? Anyways, he's just some guy has like a machine gun. It looks like it's shooting out popcorn at you. I think it's supposed to be some sort of machine gun. Yeah, I feel like he even killed his own guys, or shot his own guys. Friendly fire does appear to happen a lot in this game. Organ Grinder. I wonder if he meets people on Grindr, or maybe he's a big fan of the Grindr app, and maybe that's why he's called Organ Grinder. This boss isn't that challenging, actually. This is a really good strategy. You just walk up, like, intersect him diagonally, and Batman will just put him into a grip, and he can smack him down, and that does a lot of damage against him. It's not that hard of a boss at all. He really gave up. I mean, this level's actually quite easier compared to some of the other levels we did. This is where the game really starts to give up on being a challenge. Instead, it's like saying, screw it, we'll just make this game easy now. Just like what Philosoma would do years later. Batman just picks up the enemies and throws them down. They're smashing his back, and there we go. The Organ Grinder is defeated. Stage 6 cleared. Next level is going to be the last level of the game, where we'll finally take on the Penguin and end this insanity that he's put over Gotham City. This game is just over way too soon, but again, a lot of SNES games aren't very long. This game doesn't have any kind of save feature either, so you're forced to play the game in one sitting pretty much. Same with a lot of other SNES and Genesis games. This is Ray Phoenix, signing out.